Hello, everyone, and happy Thursday. It's nearly the end of the week. I don't know if you're as happy as I am to get to the end of the week. But today we'll be having another IG Live talking about growing plants. So if you joined last week, you'll know we kind of had an introduction with Victoria about the benefits of growing food and why should we do it, and she really hammered it home that it's important and we can start simply with whatever we have. And last week I also said that I would start growing my own things, so I got a herb kit and I've started to plant some herbs, so we'll see how that goes. But today I'll be joined by Philip and Dionne from We Sow, and they'll be sharing a little bit more with us, and hopefully that will be a lot more of the practicalities, some of the things that we can do to get started. But just waiting for them to join and we'll get into our conversation for today. Thanks for joining, Ronnie and Dionne and Phil. If you have any questions as we go through the live, feel free to pop them on.
Hi.
Hello.
Hey.
Hi.
How are you, Shan?
I'm good. I'm tired. Glad it's coming to the end of the week. It feels like today should be Friday. I don't know why it's just Thursday. But I'm good. How are you guys?
Yeah, we're doing very well, thanks.
Fine, thanks.
Good. So would you like to introduce yourselves to our viewers?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Dionne.
And I'm Philip.
And we're husband and wife. And we have been growing food. Well, I guess we'll probably get into the details, but as a collective, we've been growing food pretty much ever since we got married.
Okay.
How many years ago was that, Phil?
6 years in October.
Just testing.
I thought so. That was a very testing question.
Yeah, so it's kind of our family project, and it's grown from really small scale right up to us having 2 allotment plots, and we're just really into it right now. And during lockdown, we spent a lot of time at the allotment because we were allowed to do that, growing even more food, and we saw more of a need, for actually doing that. And we've had quite a few friends kind of express an interest in learning how to grow. So we decided to start a little kind of project / ministry called We Sow.
And the name kind of is the face of that. And we have an acronym, Food, Thoughts and Faith, because we share about growing food and anything to do with planting, but then also any thoughts so that we have life hacks, that kind of thing, and then faith where there's any object lessons and things like that. So We Sow is the face of all that, but gardening is the main focus
at the moment.
But
and the scripture that we kind of base our ministry / project on comes from 1 Corinthians 3 verse 6, and it says, I have planted, Apollos watered, but we insert our own name. So we say, I have planted, Philip and Dionne has watered, but God gave the increase.
Nice. Thank you for that very comprehensive introduction. So I'm guessing from what you said, you're not kind of like professional, like this is a side thing that you do, right? You have another full-time occupation, and this is kind of a hobby that's developed over the years.
Yeah, that's right. So by profession, I'm a development project manager. I build affordable homes for a housing association in Hertfordshire. What do you do, Bae?
I'm a graphic designer, and I work for a Medcom's company.
Yeah. So we don't do gardening in our day-to-day job at all.
Right. So how did you get into it? Like what's inspired? How did the journey start? Where did you get your inspiration?
I can say from my perspective. So, my dad has always been into gardening, so always saw him doing it, and I was intrigued from a young age. But I really started to get into what we're doing now more so because I did some training, some agriculture training. It was agriculture and medical missionary training lumped together, but mostly agriculture from a medical missionary who came over from the United States. It was a man by the name of Brad Neely. And I did that in Northamptonshire. And that's a shout out to Advent Farms because Advent Farms who hosted that, and they have a farm at the moment which is operating. So that's a very good place to visit as well.
Okay.
Yeah, and for me, I grew up at the allotment. My granddad had a couple of allotment plots and he would grow lots and lots of food. As a little kid, I would only ever go, not really to work, but just to harvest and eat. so, but I would be there every Sunday, you know, with granddad. And it was just a really fun childhood memory. As we've kind of like grown and learned even more about the importance of growing food, we understand now that it has real kind of spiritual significance as well. So yeah, and that's it's kind of the blueprint really to, you know, to be able to grow our own food. And I think, you know, we all saw at the beginning of the pandemic, like the drama and the queuing, you know, people queuing to get into a supermarket,
and the lack of
and the
flour.
desperation, you know, to get like some flour so you could knead a bit of dumpling, and you know, you couldn't get toilet roll, you couldn't get vegetables, like things were just really in short supply. And then like we're just there like giving food away, do you know what I mean? And we're like, oh, don't worry, we'll give you some kale and some carrots or whatever, you know, we'll share our produce with you. And we saw, wow, like this thing is really like beneficial, you know, because we did not struggle during the pandemic at all when it came to our own kind of food supply, and we were able to help others as well. So it was a real blessing.
And we even had our own flour as well, because we started milling our own flour as well. I think over the last couple of years we've been doing that. So we had about 25 kilos of wheat berries in the garage. So
yeah, so you know how like in the Bible we read these accounts and we don't really think anything of it, but like what did Joseph store? Do you know what I mean? Was it not grain?
Yeah,
exactly. So that's a staple food. Do you get what I mean? And we've been privileged enough to kind of like learn more about that. And as we'll continue to kind of discuss, you know, we like to not only grow like normal things, but we like to grow more ambiguous things. And every year we have like a little trial thing that we try to grow. And last year it was wheat. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
Cool. So just before we go into kind of the things that you've been able to grow, I know you mentioned about like the food security, like with the COVID situation, and just being able to have fresh produce readily at hand. What other benefits would you say there have been from kind of growing your own food, and even just having an allotment and being engaged in the process?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I'll list one. Maybe you can list one. We'll go back and forth.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So for me, I'm quite like, I don't know, I'm a bit sedentary. I don't really like to exercise that much. But when you're at the allotment, like there's so many like health laws that are kind of being, you know, practiced naturally. So you know, I'm getting in my exercise because I kind of have to carry the watering cans. I have to do a bit of digging, you know. I'd also say, like the health laws. If I don't know if you guys are familiar with it, but there's an acronym called
some people might not be.
There's an acronym called New Start, which is like based on biblical principles, and you've got your nutrition, exercise, water, sunlight, temperance, air, rest, and trusting in God. And I just feel like being in the allotment helps you to fulfill loads of those principles, because you're growing food, so you're getting your nutrition. You naturally have to exercise because you're doing a lot of digging. Water, because of the exercise, you have to consume more water. You're relying on the elements, you're relying on the, you know, sunlight, you know, it helps you to be temperate as well, I would say, because you're developing and cultivating patience. You have to wait for things to grow, you know. And then air, you're naturally outside, so you're getting fresh air. Rest, again, like, you know, you can't kind of do it all day. You have to kind of sit down and rest and take stock of what you're doing, and trusting in God, which goes back to our scripture that we shared at the beginning. God provides the increase. So yeah, there's a lot of like, gardening has real spiritual significance.
Yeah. Another one is, I'd say that you can save a bit of money. I wouldn't say that you're guaranteed to straight away, but I would say that during the time where, you know, you're not buying certain types of food items, then you're saving a little bit by not having to buy those items.
That's so true. And food tastes better as well. Like it actually tastes better. I remember I didn't have kale, or I ran out of something and I went to the shop to buy it. And when I opened that packet of kale and I ate it, I was just disgusted. And Philip's like, you're a vegetable snob now. But I'm not. Like, things just genuinely taste better because you're going straight from, you know, from soil to plate, as it were. And you know, you've had a hand in that whole process, and you're just gonna you consume food that has real nutritional value.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'd also say, going back to that last point, the nutritional profile generally should be better when you're growing your own food, because a lot of things, for example, maybe they've picked it you know, too early, or maybe the soils aren't very rich that they've been using to grow food. So I would say the nutrition can be better compared to, you know, what you get in the shops.
Yeah, and the final benefit, I would say, is it helps with your mental health. You know, like that whole process of like being a part of a project and watching things grow and develop, it really, really makes you happy. You know, one of the people that kind of inspire me is a guy called Ron Finley, and he's got a YouTube video about kind of growing food in the ghetto in America. And he basically says, if kids grow kale, kids will eat kale. You know, if kids grow tomatoes, they'll eat tomatoes. Do you see what I mean? So it's that sense of like pride and accomplishment, like, oh wow, God really did bless our little effort of sowing that seed. You know, and food is a staple for all of us, isn't it? And if a farmer didn't put a seed in the ground, we wouldn't be able to like eat good food. We'd just be eating lots of junk, lots of processed stuff. So mental health, it really does good for your mind when you're out there. God knew what he was doing when he put us in the garden.
That's right. Not by accident. Not by accident. Okay. So kind of going into the things that you've been able to grow, what things have you been growing over the past few years?
Okay, so I guess we should start from the beginning, like what we first started to grow. So
it was the herb garden, really.
Yeah, we started a little herb garden, which has not since matured. So hopefully we'll take you on a little tour later on, and we'll show you our little herb garden and how, you know, you can go on YouTube and you can like have a look at kind of how we started versus now how it's going. But yeah, so started off with a little tiny herb garden in our little garden. Then a church sister kindly gave us a tiny bit of like land to work at the allotment, and we proceeded to put in a bit of spinach because she promised us that it wouldn't die. She was like, put some spinach in. We had beetroot, we had beans as well, and peas.
And kale.
And a bit of kale, So
onions as well.
Did we have onions?
We did, yeah.
Okay, yeah. And we had onions. And we saw everything just grow. And we were like, whoa, this is brilliant. So we put our name on the list. And then within a few months, we got our own plot. So we had to scale it up. Yeah. So what else did we grow, babe?
Goodness, lots of different things. So all your kind of nightshades, so like tomatoes, potatoes, we've got peppers, aubergine, and then things like your gourds, so like your cucumbers, your pumpkin, what else is there? Oh, courgette,
Mm-hmm.
all of those kind of things. And
Brassicas.
yeah, lots of brassicas. So like your Brussels sprouts, broccoli, kale, cabbage, all of that good
Mm-hmm.
stuff. And then as far as I'd say, oh, also beans as well. I've grown lots of different types of beans, soft fruits, so like your strawberries, blackberries, raspberries, tayberries, all kinds of different berries, apples, pears.
Pears.
And then on some of the more interesting things we've done, we've grown soybeans, edamame. We had so many last year. So for people who've either eaten at Wagamama's when you buy the edamame, we were literally having that coming out of the allotment. It was really great.
Yeah.
And it's amazing how big the bushes can get and how many beans they can make. And then I'd say in a more interesting angle as well, we've also grown sweet potatoes. We grow figs.
That one I was
Grapes.
When you guys told me about the figs and the grapes, I was just like,
yeah,
I didn't even know that was
olives,
possible in England.
Yeah, we've got
olives as well.
Wow.
And this year we're attempting melon.
Yeah.
Which type? Watermelon or
No, not watermelon. I think one is a honeydew, and I can't remember the other one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Nice. Cool. So out of the things that you've grown so far, what would you say are like the easiest things to start out with? So if you've never grown anything before, what's easy to kind of plant and you don't have to do a lot by way of like pruning or I don't know, all the technical things you have to do. So yeah, what would you say is easy to start with?
Yeah, the herb garden.
Yeah, for sure.
Like literally what you're
like
doing,
thyme. Thyme is really good.
Basil. Rosemary.
Yeah.
Those kind of things.
Okay.
But then in terms of like leafy vegetables, I'd probably say like things like spinach and Swiss chard. In my opinion, I define growing those things as it's like trying to grow weeds, because if you've ever been to allotment, you will literally see these plants just growing everywhere that you haven't planted. Someone's thrown in a couple and they just spread there. It's literally like trying to grow weeds.
So easy.
Yeah.
It's so easy. And the whole gardening thing, it can be done on a small scale or a large scale. It really is up to you. I think the principle is that you're diligent and that you take care of it. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, some things you can be laissez-faire with, like Philip said, the spinach and the Swiss chard. Like, it doesn't need that much attention, but it is important that you give it some attention.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess kind of pivoting now into like the practicalities. So I've obviously gone out and bought a little kit that had everything that I needed to start a herb garden. But other than doing something like that, how would you advise someone to start, like they want to start growing things? Maybe they live in a flat. Let's start with you live in a flat, maybe you don't have a garden. What would you kind of recommend?
So I just think you first and foremost you kind of need to think about the things that you like. So let's just say you're going to do the herb garden thing. Think about what do I spend a lot of money on? Oh, you might spend money on like buying mint from the shop, or thyme or whatever, like those kind of things, chives, spring onions, things like that. So you just want to go out and just get some seeds, basically. And get like you can get cute little troughs and things these days, things that you can kind of put on your window sill, or you can have over your balcony, like really nice things. But you want to try and look for an area in your home that is well lit. You want plenty of light, because parts of your house can operate as a little kind of greenhouse, can help your vegetables and your herbs in this instance to grow.
I would say another thing I would say is really look at your space. So look at, for example, if you are in a flat, do you have a window? So some flats as well might have almost like a big kind of window that expands the whole length of the floor kind of thing. And so those kind of spaces can be good for growing things. Like especially if you've got things like tomatoes, you could grow in a pot, for example. And then if you have a balcony or a small garden, even if there isn't any grass in the garden or any soil, just the fact that you have the space, you can even buy things like, some little fruiting plants that can go inside, pots. Like you can even get these like dwarf trees of like cherries, and you could even do a little vertical stuff with strawberries,
lettuce and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in the case of the strawberries, you can, get these kind of stackable, these stackable kind of pots, in a sense, if that, so that way you can maximize the space by going up.
I would argue you could start growing food from as little as a fiver. If you £5 or £10 just to start off, and then you'll find that it becomes addictive quite quickly, and you'll want to just scale that up. But just like with everything, it's really important to do a bit of research, and there's a couple of like books and things that I've used and I continue to use. So the first one is this one, Vegetables in a Small Garden. And it gives you lots of hints and tips. So
who's that book by?
The Royal Horticultural Society.
Okay.
So I think I picked it up for like £2 or £3 from the Works. So it was really cheap, and it's very, very practical. And because it's a small garden, it's going to like show you, what kind of things you can use. So that's a good one. And then, depending on how ambitious you're feeling, if you want to scale it up a little bit and you just want to learn more about the science of growing food, this is like my guide, Allotment Month by Month, by Alan Buckingham. That is an absolutely brilliant guide, because as it says on the front of the book, it goes month by month, and it will break down,
what you need
everything,
to do,
basically. But that's for the serious gardener right there.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay, nice. Cool. So I guess you've answered both. Okay, so we've covered like in your house, if you've got kind of limited space, you've got a balcony. So if you've got a garden, are there any extra tips that you would suggest for things you can grow in a small garden?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think now's probably a good time to take you on a little tour. And then we can just kind of show you what we're doing. Well, I mean, we've got a decent sized garden, and it's quite a mature garden, but it was like that when we came. So what we've done is we've just like added a load of pots and just made it, a little bit more mature.
Although we have planted some things. I planted a significantly sized olive tree, because I was keeping it in a pot, but then the wind destroyed the pot. And then I've also planted in a grapevine as well.
Yeah. So, but let's take you on a tour now. Hopefully the Wi-Fi will hold up. So let's go outside.
Nice. For those who are watching, feel free to send any questions through, and I will direct them at Dionne and Philip.
Excellent.
I believe you can turn the camera around.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah. Right, so this is our little garden. So if we
goes that way, and then it also
kind of goes round
the side as well.
But we'll start off with my little herb garden. Looks a little bit messy, but it's great. Wow. So over here we've got some thyme, and we didn't start this from seed. We actually did we?
We did, yeah.
Oh.
This was the one we started on the windowsill.
Oh, right, okay. So we started that one on the windowsill. I remember us was it the rosemary?
It was the rosemary.
Okay. So we started this from seed years ago, and it's super mature, and it comes back every year, and it just, it needs almost no maintenance. It's fantastic. So, and we love thyme, especially Caribbean people. We put thyme in everything. So, now I can literally just step outside and cut a bit of thyme. This starts to die back over the winter. So what I'll do is I'll just like kind of take as much as I can get, and just dry it out. And then I've got my herbs, my dried herbs. And then if I move on to the rosemary here, It looks quite mature now, but yeah, this is rosemary. It's really nice. We got it from a little farm shop. I think it cost £3. And ever since then, it's just been growing and growing.
That's a sage plant. I was gifted to somebody at the allotment. He had like probably 15 of them growing by accident, and he was trying to get rid of them as quick as.
Yeah, you find that, you know, yeah, the allotment, like people, it really is a sharing community, and people are just really like give you lots of stuff. So yeah, this year we inherited sage,
lemon balm, and then we've got another person gave us from the allotment that they
really nice in tea form and for like curries and things like that. Really nice. Got a bit of mint here as well.
But we've got loads more mint that's just growing wild before we moved here.
Yeah,
so
but we'll show you that in a minute.
No.
And then we've got chives, but this is starting to die back. Our chives. And then we had some spare onions, so we've just kind of like sprinkled them in the allotment.
This is some wild garlic.
Yeah, wild garlic there.
White nettle, which we deliberately planted.
White nettle. They say that's good for like iron deficiency and anemia. Yeah, because it's not prickly, this one. So you can just like make it into like a little spinach, saute it, and it's really good for those who have iron deficiencies like me. So, and then this is the grapevine.
You can see these are the flowers, the clusters. I've counted about 21 clusters. And then if you see here, you can see these ones have recently been pollinated.
Yeah. So.
And then behind us, this is the olive tree, and full of lots of buds, because these are going to flower and turn into olives.
Going to be olives, potentially.
Nice.
And then we've got.
Did you plant that? That was a tree that you bought, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Had no choice but to plant it.
You've got two, haven't you? Because you had to cross-pollinate it.
Yeah, the second one isn't doing much though.
Okay, but yeah, it's really cool.
And then we've got some strawberries in here.
Strawberries.
What's in season at the moment?
Strawberries. We've been picking a lot of those. Mint.
Oh, and then we've got. In fact, if you stand back,
what's
just
in
taking
season?
The whole thing. At the moment, yes, soft fruits, so strawberries, raspberries. Other things are just coming at the moment.
Yeah, we've got spinach. We've been picking spinach and chard and things like that for ages.
Maybe if you
all throughout the winter.
Just so that we can show how we've got it set up here. So we've kind of done this whole corner where we've kind of lined all our pots and stuff and our tree. Okay. So we've got different things growing. And here is where we've got, these are tayberries. They're like a cross between blackberries and raspberries. You can see there's a fruit here. Or a couple fruit there. And these are really nice. This is a plum tree. Still hasn't bore anything, but we're hoping. And this is the fig tree, and you can see there's some figs on it.
Wow.
And then we've got this is raspberry, and this is a long blackberry, so these get really long black fruits on there.
And then you can see the mint just going a bit crazy back there.
Mint does that, doesn't it? Yeah.
I love mint though, it's really nice.
And then these are two hazelnut trees.
Hazelnuts, wow.
Yeah, and then these are red currants.
So if you go on our YouTube channel, you see a drink that I made with those.
Yeah.
And then here, if we can see, this is the vertical stacking for the strawberries. And you can see we're just full of strawberries at the moment.
Yeah, but something like that would look really nice on like a balcony.
Yeah, if you just turn it slightly.
Yeah.
It'd look really nice on the balcony, and you don't have to fill it with strawberries. You could put lettuce in there, or you could put your herbs in there. You know, there's options, and it doesn't take up too much space as well.
And where do you tend to buy kind of things like that, pots and kind of gardening tools?
I just go to the Range, B&Q, places like that, really.
And then we've got lots of blueberries here, and these are some of the fruit coming up over here. And then this is a goji berry plant as well.
Goji berries too. Wow, you guys are really, like, honestly.
And then I think the last
hashtag goals.
We've got an apple tree here. And then these are some more strawberries.
Yeah, those ones actually have fruit.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay. So it seems like from your garden, there's nothing that's really like planted in the ground, from what I can see,
exactly.
really.
I mean, there's a few bits, but yeah, if we ever need to move, we can just take our herbs with us, really.
Yeah, even the grapevine is actually in a pot, but the pot is buried.
Nice.
Yeah, so I think it's
Okay.
yeah, it's portable. It's a portable garden.
Yeah. Nice. Okay. Cool.
Oh,
I think we had a question here.
Yeah, it's fine.
About if there's only one thing that you could grow like forever, like that's the only thing you could grow, what would that be?
Forever. Forever. Oh.
Oh, it depends, because because for me it's a mixture of practicality versus like when it comes to like survival and practicality versus what you enjoy eating.
Okay.
But if it was just survival, it would definitely be wheat.
Okay. I would say spinach because it pretty much grows all year round.
Okay. Cool. And if it was in terms of the things that you enjoy, like you just love when that time comes to eat the produce, what would that be?
Figs, yeah, definitely. Because most people you meet, if they ask you, they'll tell you they don't like figs, and that's because if you buy figs from the shop, apart from maybe like some places where I've bought really good ones, they taste of nothing. But when you get a fig off the tree and you wait until it's at the absolute limit of its ripeness, when the sugars are at its highest, and you pick that off the tree and eat it, it's like to be honest, I think there's very few fruit that can beat it in terms of flavor when you get it absolutely perfect. But most people have never tasted that, so they can't say it.
Yeah.
I'm a tropics girl, so if I had my way, I would love to live in the Caribbean and just grow like actual tropical food, coconut, papaya, mangoes, all of that. When I'm talking to my cousins and they're telling me it's mango season,
I know.
I'm just like,
I know. It's so cruel. It's so cruel.
What are you eating? He says, "Oh, for Sabbath lunch, I'm just eating a few mangoes."
Oh my days, yeah.
Speaking of tropical though, one thing that is part of our experiment is we're growing Maya lemons, and those are probably like the best lemons you'll ever taste. Like they're smaller, but they have like probably twice as much juice in them, and they're sweeter. But they're quite tricky to grow, so we've been having difficulty. But we're kind of learning as we go. But the last time we had some amazing Maya lemons.
I've given up, to be honest, but Philip's the diligent one in this relationship.
All right, cool. Great. I think you've answered the questions that I had. Actually, I had a question. So I've got this herb garden, right? And obviously they're in very small pots, and I think you're supposed to kind of put it into a bigger pot. Is that kind of how it works? In terms of like soil, do you have any recommendations for what kind of soil I can buy? Or do I just go to this shop and just buy a bag of soil? So yeah, for my next stages when these start to kind of grow wild, what would be the next step?
Yeah, you just need like a multi-purpose compost.
Okay.
And when you transfer it out, take as much soil as possible. So I noticed yours were like cardboard pots.
Yeah.
Rather than pull them out, you might want to cut around the cardboard pots and then plant them into like a bigger, I don't know whether you're going to buy one of those cute trough things that you can put on the ledge. You can get really nice ones, or you might get individual pots. It's up to you. But yeah, transplant them by putting in loads of soil, just scoring around that peat pot, and then just kind of put the whole thing in, so you're getting all the root system and everything. That way you don't shock the plant too much, and water it as well.
Okay. And go on.
If you're growing things like basil, it doesn't like to be watered at night, so you want to do it in the night or in the morning. They're a bit fussy.
Okay. I think the instructions had said as well that the seedlings can get, like, they can be a lot in a small space, so to kind of separate them. Is that what you would I kind of separate them in the same pot, or do I put them in?
Yeah, so to separate them, you just pinch them out. You just take out the ones that are, if it's like too much in a little peat pot, then you just out the ones that that are a bit too much, basically.
Okay.
But I mean, just let it grow, maybe a centimetre or two, and then just send me a picture and I'll instruct you.
Advice. Beautiful. Great. Good to have friends like you.
No problem.
And another question was, what would you say is the number one reason why things might not grow?
That's a good question. So depends if you're growing inside in the house or outdoors. Good question. I would probably say lack of sunlight definitely definitely lack of sunlight. And the reason I can say that is because even with the allotment, sometimes I don't bother to plant things out too early, because if it's just going to rain for like 2 months and have skies, then in those 2 months the plants will hardly grow, a lot of them. But yet then you might get a week of sun where they grow more than they did during those 2 months.
Okay.
Because sunlight is so important. Like water, yes, water is important as a basic necessity, but water is not what makes plants grow.
I would say two reasons actually why things don't grow. Maybe you've planted it at the wrong time of the year. So you have to read the instructions on the back of your seed packet, and it will tell you it will give you a range, between when you are to kind of sow it out. And then the second reason is probably because of pests. Yeah. Because things start growing. Dog decides to decapitate your lettuce or whatever. That's another reason.
Okay, so in terms of pests, what kind of things do you do for pest control? Are there kind of natural pesticides? Because I know we talk a lot about supermarkets and industrial kind of farming. They use a lot of chemicals.
Yeah,
how do you guys kind of maneuver that?
We've kind of made it a point to stick to organic gardening, so we don't use any nasties really. But with that's probably another point. Like, some of your food may be a bit sacrificial, so you should definitely plant out more than you actually need, to allow for a few casualties basically. But some things that we do, we use this thing called sheep's wool pellets, and slugs hate that. And what happens is it's basically sheep's wool. So you kind of lay it over the soil. You plant out your food, you lay it over the soil, and then you water it in, and then the sheep's wool kind of expands, and then won't really go near it. You can also buy slug traps as well, which are like little round things with lids. And you can insert a solution. So they say beer works really well, but we don't personally buy beer. So Philip's made an option. What does it consist of?
So you take flour, yeast, sugar, and water, and then the yeast will start to activate, and then as the fermentation starts, that attracts the slugs. The slugs try and drink it. They fall in the water, and because they're too slow, they drown. Yeah. At one time, when we caught 200 slugs in about.
I don't know why you like to share that. Why you them? But anyway, it's basically a solution.
But another thing as well, though, is one problem is also aphids and also a lot of infections. Because as much as we might see rain as a good thing, we have so much rain as we get in the UK, it actually just spreads plant diseases. It spreads lots of funguses that kill your plants. And so
neem oil, right?
I use neem oil. So mix neem oil with a bit of washing up liquids and some water, and you can spray that. That will kill things like aphids. It will also kill a lot of funguses that attack your plants.
And also, if you're planting tomatoes, it's going to be a rainy season, you can kind of put little bags over your tomatoes,
like transparent bin bags.
Transparent bin bags, so that the fruit will still grow but won't get blight. Basically, we found stopped it. And it's up to you. You can start with seeds, or you can literally start with actual seedlings. So you can go to the centre and you can get a plant that's already started growing, and plant that out and start that way. So gardening really is as simple or as complicated as you want to
make it.
But just start small, start really small, start with one plant, do that diligently, scale up next year, do a bit of research during the winter so that you're prepared. Watch We Sow videos as well.
Yes, that's right.
And hopefully all of that will help.
Great. I think I have one more question. So unless there's no other questions I ask, this is the final question. So in terms of an allotment, what is the process for getting one? And in terms of time commitment, I know it depends on probably what you grow, but kind of what's your schedule like with the allotment?
Yeah, so I'd say we've got, again, YouTube, we've got a video specifically on how to sign up to an allotment plot.
Okay, cool.
But what you basically need to do is go to your local council's website if you live in England. Your local council's website, type in allotment, and you'll fill in a form which will help you to register your interest. And when a plot becomes available, they'll let you know, and they'll let you know kind of how much it costs and everything. I would say that it's a good idea to maybe start this project with a few friends so that it's not overwhelming. I do it by myself. If you know somebody that already has an allotment plot, I don't know if you guys attend church, but if you attend a local church, some of the elderly people, may have an allotment plot. So ask them if you can use a piece of theirs just to test it out. That's what we did, and then we really liked it. We put our name on the list. But if you want to go all in, some people are like that. Then all you need to do is literally go to your local council's website, register your interest. Depending on where you live, there could be a bit of a wait for an allotment plot. We were just quite blessed to kind of get ours within 3 months, but you might be waiting years sometime.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, because especially in the pandemic, like a lot of people did a few things. They either got a bicycle, got a dog, or got an allotment plot. Or they brought roller skates. Like these things, the trend. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the allotment thing, it's really commonplace now, and there's a lot of like social media handles all about homesteading and things like that, and going back to basics. So really started to gain a lot of traction. If you're in like places like London, you might be waiting years for a plot, unfortunately. Yeah, but you could definitely, there's ways around it, and the main that if you want to do it, then start on a really small scale and do it at home. Scale up.
One thing I'd say as well is just, you asked about time commitment. So I would say it depends on the size of your allotment plot.
Okay.
So traditionally, a standard size allotment plot used to be the size of a doubles tennis court. Nowadays, a lot of times, like our site, a large plot may be half that, for example. And then a small plot would be, the other half of that. So like kind of like a quarter size of a tennis court. It can be a lot of work, especially if you get really hot weather. You may have to be watered twice a day. There's a lot of weeding involved, various things like that. So you could easily be at the allotment most days of the week.
Right.
But it just really depends on the scale, how big an allotment plot you get, really.
Yeah, and like how you choose to kind of organize it.
Yeah.
So I've found that raised beds are a really, really great way to kind of organize your plot. Because you can kind of control it a lot better rather than just having like big open spaces, which require a lot of maintenance. So raised beds are definitely the way forward. And it just kind of helps with the organization. So
I think you have a video about that as well, don't you? Kind of how you've organized. Yeah. Okay. So I think, guys, check out We Sow on YouTube, and you'll get some more information there. All right. So I think that's it. And thank you so much for coming on. I know a lot of what we're talking about is really practical, so we're probably the easiest way for us to learn is for us to do it ourselves as well, right? What would be the number one thing you want people to leave with? A takeaway, a top tip, encouragement, to kind of inspire people on this journey of planting food?
My top tip is to, I don't know, what's my top tip? Check out We Sow, and hopefully we'll inspire you.
And subscribe.
And then the second top tip is literally just go and grow something.
Yeah.
Something. Yeah. That's literally what Victoria said last week. So yeah, I think that's amazing.
Add as well. Top tip for me is don't be afraid of failure. I believe that if you grow some stuff and everything just works and you don't know why, you've not learned anything. So don't be afraid of failure. If you fail and you notice stuff isn't growing, and then you have to gradually fix things, you start to see it improve, then it shows you're learning about the plant, you're learning about what it is, rather than when everything grows and works perfectly, you have no idea why it's worked. Failure is not a bad teacher.
Yeah, that's so true.
Nice.
And those books that I recommended earlier, really can't go wrong. School of YouTube, can't go wrong. There's so much information out there. Yeah, I'm surprised that nobody asked about the no-dig method of gardening as well. I'm really surprised no one asked that question, because that seems to be a really big thing. But yeah, it's not something that we do personally, because we just think that it's a bit too expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no-dig, it seems to be a really big thing as well.
All right, that sounds like some advanced things, or is it quite simple? Yeah, you mentioned it. What is the no-dig method? I've never heard of it.
I can't remember the guy's name either. Shame on me. But if you type in no-dig garden, you'll see that methodology. So what you basically do is you lay out like a couple of pieces of cardboard, and then I think wood chips, and then your soil, and then more wood chips, and then you kind of, rather than going right into the soil, you'll just go like as deep as you kind of need to go, really. So what you're doing is you're kind of creating layers above the soil, and then you're planting into there. And the idea is, you'll have a lot less weeding.
The weeds.
Yeah, a lot less weeding, a lot less things to do. But a few of our friends have done it at the allotment, and they've just to be too expensive. Yeah. So but I was looking into it, but I figured, you know what, I'm all right with the digging. I'm fine out of me getting my exercise.
Exactly.
Actually beneficial. So
one thing that I forgot to mention, you kind of talked about pests, and also a tip. I would also say find out about creatures that live in your local allotment. The reason why is because depending on where your site is located, it can affect what kind of things you have to deal with. So really bad problem with foxes digging up everything. Another friend of ours has a plot in a village. They've had to deal with badgers, herds of deer coming through and stripping the whole lot. So find out other people there, what kind of things are there, to get an idea of what you're up against when you're growing things.
Yeah, definitely.
That's a good one.
Oh, and the frost. You said you were going to talk about the frost as well.
Frost?
Yeah,
So
final tip.
Yeah, frost is very important to watch for. So you can get a calendar. You can look online for when the last frost is in your local area. And that's important because if you plant things out whilst the frost is still on the ground, it can kill certain plants. So you're aware of when the last frost is. So in other words, when after winter is finished, and then the last week where there's an expected frost in the morning, you know that after that you're safe for certain plants.
Yeah, so we're in Hertfordshire, and our last frost this year was,
I think it was sometime in May.
Yeah.
May.
Yeah, so
dear.
It was quite
dear.
Oh, one thing. Sorry, I know I should have mentioned this before. I was speaking to Dee about the fact that in America they tend to be aware of their climatic zones. I think there's value in that in the UK as well if you're growing outside. So if you look at what grows in the countryside, in different zones, it will give you a sense of where you would have difficulties. So, for example,
Okay.
of England is a lot of arable, so wheat and things like that, which shows that the conditions are ideal for growing like
Potatoes,
various types of crops. Whereas the more north you go, you start to see they switch more to livestock, and the reason why is because the conditions are
Oh,
favorable for growing plants.
wow.
So then you may have to,
Okay.
further north you may go, you may necessitate having to have polytunnels and things like that.
Mm.
And a top fun fact as well, which shows about the weather differences, is Kent gets the most sunlight cumulatively in the UK, and that's why they're able to grow olives on a commercial scale, but it doesn't happen anywhere else in the country.
Oh, wow. Okay.
yeah.
Nice.
Yes,
Cool.
there's loads of bits of information out there. There really is.
Yeah.
You know, it just depends on what kind of scale you know
Mhm.
you want to start growing.
Yeah.
But definitely the main thing is just to start.
Just to start.
Like I've got a friend who, you know, I kind of really encouraged her to start growing food, and now she's just completely addicted, and she absolutely loves it. And that's what happens. It's just that gratification to know,
Yeah.
you know, you can put a seed in, you
Definitely.
you rely on God to help you, you know, with the conditions, with the right weather and everything like that. And then at the end, you know, you just see the fruits of that.
Mm.
And it's just a real blessing. And everyone can grow food. It's not living in the ideal, you know, like home, even if you don't have like a massive garden, or you just got a little balcony. Even if you haven't got a balcony, if you've got a window sill, you know, just start, literally start, and you'll enjoy it.
Great. Wonderful. Well, yeah, thank you very much to you both for taking the time out to share with us. And I hope those of you watching have learnt something, you've been inspired. And if you do start growing anything, then please tag us, myself, and tag WeSow, and show us what you're growing, so that we can help encourage each other. And I'm sure Dionne and Phil wouldn't mind if you've got any questions, something's growing and you kind of don't know what you're doing, and you just need some help, get in touch with them, check out their YouTube channel as well. And yeah, hopefully 2021 will be a year of a new skill that's developed. So yeah, thanks guys. And next week I will have my friend Abby, who has been doing some growing of her own, and she'll share some of her experience as well. So same time, same place. Yeah, here on Shaz Delights. So thanks guys. Hope you have a good rest of your evening.
Thanks, Shan. Take care.
See you.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.